Hello everyone, my name is Lorthorn and welcome to this how-to for Ars Nouveau by Bailey Hole 2. This is for Minecraft version 1.20.1, Forge and Java Edition. In this tutorial I'm going to be covering this book here, the Worn Notebook. Specifically I'm going to be covering the Getting Started section. However, I will be covering a few other sections including Resources and Decoration, Source, Machines, Automation, Enchanting, and Familiars. We will dabble in rituals, the glyph tiers, magical equipment, and armor perks if they are relevant to the Getting Started section. However, I will not be going in depths into the sections with the red exclamation marks. Those will be covered in a different video, which will hopefully be up within a few weeks of this video being produced. So, to get started with Ars Nouveau and how to do it, first you must find out you're a wizard. Next, come with me. So in starting out with this mod installed, you should start with the Worn Notebook. However, if for whatever reason you do not have it, then you can simply craft it by combining a book and lapis lazuli together in a crafting table. Once you have this book, you can attempt to follow along through the Getting Started section, go through it yourself, or you can just watch this video. After we have our Worn Notebook, we want to get the second book, and that is going to be our spellbook, the Novice spellbook. The Novice spellbook is made with a sword, axe, a shovel, a pickaxe, and a book, all iron, besides the book of course, and made in a normal crafting table. This book will contain certain spells for you to start with. Certain spell glyphs will be already unlocked. To access the spells and glyphs within your spellbook, you have to press C to open it. This hotkey can be set within your options. Go click on options, go click on controls, then click on key bindings. Scroll down until you find Ars Nouveau, then you can choose how to open your spellbook with C. All other hotkey choices can be set here as well. The spells you start out with in the book, if you haven't done anything yet, will be Projectile, Self, and Touch, and you will have the effects of both Break and Harm. To make a spell, click on one of the empty pages of your spellbook. Then you can choose one from this list. Projectile will launch a spell from a distance, Self will cast a spell on yourself, and Touch will cast a spell within a close range of you touching the block you are clicking specifically. Then you select the effect after you've selected a form. We could choose Break, or we could choose Harm, starting with the basics. Break will break a block, and Harm will harm whatever it hits. The amount of mana the spell cost can be seen down here on this little mana bar. The more effects you add, the more it will cost. So we can make an all-around spell, which both breaks blocks and harms whatever it hits. Or we can make it so it just breaks blocks by clearing that out. Then we simply name the spell and click create to create the spell. And now we have the spell break, which is when we click on block, it'll break the block and cost us some of our mana. This spell can be customized in appearance to change its color. You can either customize the colors here, or you can select from the list here and press save. And you can also control the sounds the spell make. Default being set to fire, but we can go with Tempest form and press save. And now, the spell will make different noises and have a different color when cast. You can customize more than just spells because you can customize the spellbook by dyeing it different colors. You can use any color of dye and you can get almost any color of book. White, green, blue, whatever you want, you can get. Next, let's gather the basics. The first basic we want to gather is wood. Specifically, we want to gather archwood. Archwood is found in these archwood trees, which are a rare spawning tree which can spawn in any biome or they can spawn in their own forest. Archwood can be cut down like any other kind of tree, and it drops saplings like any kind of tree. These saplings can be bone mealed to get you more archwood, so I recommend collecting the saplings at the very least so you never run out of archwood. There are 4 different kinds of archwood tree. There is the vexing archwood, flourishing archwood, blazing archwood, and cascading archwood. I recommend trying to gather one of every type and having a little farm going of their saplings. No matter what kind of archwood log is though, they will just produce archwood planks. Archwood planks are one of the main crafting ingredients you will find within this mod. Once you have some archwood planks, combine them with 2 gold in a crafting table to create an imbuement chamber. The imbuement chamber's main purpose is to get you source gems. How it gets you source gems is by converting either amethyst shards or lapis into a source gem after you put it inside it. The process takes some time, progressing about 2% every second, meaning it should take about 50 seconds to get a full source gem out of putting it into the imbuement chamber. Once the 50 seconds have elapsed, you will get the source gems. These source gems are very important and you're going to need a lot of them. However, it is hard to get lots of lapis lazuli and lots of amethyst shards without having to spend a lot of time searching for them, and it can be fruitless at times. There is a thing that helps you along with this though, and that is making a dowsing rod. Dowsing rod is made with archwood planks and gold ingots. Once you have the dowsing rod, you right click within your inventory, and then you start looking for special reactions within the ground. These will be these blue highlights you can see underground, and this will indicate where amethyst clusters are located. The closer you get to them, the more the color will change to green from blue, and then it will change to white, and that'll indicate you are right at the amethyst cluster. Now that you have a lot of amethyst that can be converted into source gems, let's move on. So first we are going to make source stone. This is made by taking a source gem and surrounding it with stone. Next, by combining archwood slabs and glass, we make the source jar. After that, we take gold, wheat, and source gems to create an agromatic source link. Place your agromatic source link in the center of a field that you're planning to harvest and grow with, then place a source jar nearby it. Whenever plants grow, the agromatic source link will fill a nearby source jar with raw source energy. Having source near an imbuement chamber when creating source gems greatly speeds up the process, making it go about 40 ticks a second instead, and you almost instantly get a source gem at the cost of a small amount of the source fuel from your source jar. The process of getting source into the source jars from your agromatic source links is rather slow and can be made faster by either having more crops planted and more of these active in the area, or instead of planting mundane crops, planting magical crops. The first of the magical crops is a source berry. They are planted like normal berries onto the ground. When they grow, they will produce more source than the mundane crops. These berries grow in the same locations that normal berries go, so to find them you just have to go to a spruce forest. Then you right click on one of the berry clusters and you can pick up a handful of berries, and they are just planted as you saw earlier. The other kind of magical crop takes a little bit more work to get. So to start with, in the process of getting it, you need to make an arcane pedestal. This is made with gold nuggets, source stone, and a source gem. Next you want to make an enchanting apparatus. This is made with gold ingots, gold nuggets, source stone, and a diamond. Finally, you want to craft an arcane core, made with source stone, gold ingots, and a source gem. Once you have these all put together and set up sort of like this, you can start enchanting items with this process. You do not need 8 arcane pedestals to start with, 4 should suffice for now, but in the future try to get all 8. Next, take 4 of your source gems and put them onto 4 of the pedestals you have available. Then take an ordinary wheat seed and put it into the enchanting apparatus on the top. After a short special effects process indicating crafting has occurred, you will get a Magebloom seed. Retrieve the seed by right-clicking on the apparatus. Then this can be planted like a wheat seed in a cultivated field. Once the Magebloom is fully grown, you can harvest it and get the Magebloom block. This is an essential crafting ingredient within Ars Nouveau. To make it into a useful form, put it inside a crafting table, and it by itself will be turned into Magebloom fibers. Making magic. To start with making magic and making new glyphs, which can be found in our mage spellbook, we first need to make a blank parchment. Blank parchment is made with normal paper and Magebloom fibers surrounding it. After we have the blank parchment made, we want to take archwood logs, gold nuggets, and archwood slabs to create a scribe's table. Once you have your scribe's table down, take your blank parchment and right click on the table with it, and it'll be placed onto the table. Then take your spellbook and right click on the table with your spellbook. Then select the new glyph you want to unlock. The glyph we are going to select is underfoot. When this is selected, the ingredients required to craft this glyph will float above the table, showing you which ones you'll need. This one requires a pressure plate and a pair of iron boots. You can throw the ingredients onto the table and it will gobble them up, or you can put them into a chest nearby and it will take them from the chest and put them into the table. So if you have dumped chests near the table with a lot of random stuff in them, it can automatically craft glyphs for you. Once the glyph is crafted, right click with the glyph and it will unlock it for you. When it's unlocked in your spellbook, you can now start to use it. The glyph of underfoot will cast spells directly underneath you. So if we create the spell of glyph underfoot and break, then in total we can make the spell don't do this. We create it, and now it will mine down directly underneath us, but only if we're on the ground. If we're in the air while we cast it, it won't break the block beneath us. Magic armor. There is the sorceress armor, the arcanist armor, and the battle mage armor. To craft these, you need an enchanting apparatus setup and base gear. Either a full set of iron, a full set of gold, or a full set of diamond. Then, depending on which kind of magical armor you want, you choose one of these armor sets and combine it with 4 Magebloom fibers inside the enchanting apparatus setup. So we first put the Magebloom fibers into the pedestals, 4 to begin with. Then, if we want battle mage armor, we select the diamond armor and we put it into the center enchanting apparatus. It'll combine them into the singular battle mage chest piece. For each piece of armor you want in the set, you have to convert it over for its corresponding gear type. The diamond armor will give you battle mage gear, gold will give you sorceress gear, and iron will give you arcanist gear. The differences between these is how enhanceable they are and how much armor they give you. The battle mage gambeson gives us the most armor, however it is the least modifiable of the lot. The sorceress wrap is the most modifiable but gives us the least armor. Finally, the arcanist is the balance in between the two of giving you slightly better enhancement options and slightly better armor, but not quite as good armor as the battle mage gambeson and not quite as good enchantments as the sorceress armor. Regardless of any of these factors, they also give you additional max mana and additional mana regen when equipped, the full set giving you a fairly decent bonus to all these altogether. These armor sets can also be customized by dyeing them different colors. We can use, again, any of the colors we have available to us in dyes in base game Minecraft. So we can go from a default purple mage into a pretty cool looking blue mage in a matter of seconds. Ars Nouveau adds new dangerous creatures and new passive creatures. The main dangerous creature it adds, or rather the only dangerous creature it adds to you, are the Windles. There are 3 kinds of Windles. They can be found randomly spawning in the world or in Windle dens. Windle dens will be located in specific biomes, and it'll give you details on these within the Worn notebook. If we open the notebook and look at resources and decorations and go to Windles, it'll tell us about each different kind of Windle and which biomes they spawn in. Windle defenders are found in cold biomes, stalkers and hunters are found in forest biomes. Now the Windle defender's name was changed to Windle Guardian, and they can also be found in these sort of underwater weird biomes here, and they've got guardian spikes and fins. They used to be a snowy creature. I think the design change was turn them into this sort of polar bear guardian thing, and this is what one of their dens look like. From the Windle Guardian, you can kill them and get the Windle Spike. In this forest biome, we will be finding some Windle Hunters. The Hunters will drop Windle Horns. Also, within their dens, we find chests filled with resources, including things from the mod and things from the base game. The final kind of Windle, the Windle Stalker, drops Windle Wings. Wilden Stalkers are these sort of weird, creepy bat creatures. Each Windle has its own special powers and its own challenges in overcoming them. The Windle Stalker will fly at you and hop along like a creepy monster, and the Windle Hunters will summon a pack of wolves after howling, and the wolves along with them will attack you in a mob-like rush. The Windle Guardian is quite adept at swimming, and it retaliates with its spikes by poking them out whenever you attack it, making it dangerous to attack head on. Now that we know how to get Windle bits, let's get a Starbuncle token. First thing you need to do to get a Starbuncle token is find a Starbuncle. Starbuckles can be found in the woods biomes or plains biomes or basically anywhere, and they are these cute little squirrel creatures. Now, wild Starbuckles will run away from you. They are terrified of humans. However, they love gold, and that is what they are looking for and searching for, is gold nuggets. So if you happen to throw a gold nugget onto the ground, they'll come pick it up and put it on their tail. Once he's picked up the gold nugget and placed it on his tail, it will disappear and leave behind Starbuncle tokens. Essences. To make an essence, we are going to require the imbuement chamber again. How it works is you take the required essence ingredients and put them on pedestals around the imbuement chamber. Then you put a source gem into the imbuement chamber, and it'll imbue the source gem with the essences needed. The first essence we're going to look at is fire essence. This is made by placing a flint and steel, gunpowder, and a torch onto the pedestals around the imbuement chamber. Then we put the source gem in, and it will take source from a nearby source jar and convert the source gem into an essence. There are 7 different essences, each crafted with its own ingredient. There's earth essence, made with dirt, iron, and seeds. There's water essence, made with kelp, water in a bucket, and snow. Abjuration essence, made with milk, sugar, and fermented spider eyes. Fire essence, which we already covered. Manipulation essence, made with a clock, redstone, and a button. Conjuration essence, made with windlehorn, book, and Starbuncle token. And finally, there's air essence, made with arrows, windle wing, and feathers. Moving forward, Starbuncle automation. To get started with Starbuncle automation, we're going to take the Starbuncle token and turn it into a Starbuncle charm. So you put it in an enchanting apparatus, shown here, along with 4 gold ingots. For the future, I'll now be showing the use of enchanting apparatus in my crafting reticles by just simply having it there, a part of the billboard example. So once you've done the process, you'll get the Starbuncle charm. The Starbuncle charm will summon a tamed Starbuncle for you. Tame Starbuncle's main purpose is to automate harvesting crops for you. So you take the Starbuncle charm and you place it within a plant's field. The Starbuncle will automatically harvest the plants and leave them on the ground. However, you can make him place them into chests by clicking on him with the domain wand and following the commands. The domain wand is another item made in the enchanting apparatus. 2 source gems onto the pedestals and a gold ingot onto the 3rd pedestal, then put a stick in the center of the enchanting apparatus, and this will give you the domain wand. To make the Starbuncle put items into the chest, right click on him with the domain wand, then shift right click on a chest you want to put the items into. Now the Starbuncle will put any item he finds into the chest he's been set to put items into. If you only want him putting a specific item type into the chest, you can create a filter by putting an item frame on the chest, then putting an item on the chest, and he will only put those items into that chest. If you tell him to put other items in the chest by chucking them on the ground, he'll have no interest on picking them up. Starbuckles have an unfortunate habit of wandering away, and so if you want to ensure that they stay in a location, right click on the Starbuncle with your domain wand, and then right click on a Starbuncle bed, and this will set it as his bed and his default home spot where he'll stay until he needs to go back to work. The other option is of course just containing him with fences, but this seems a little more humane. To make the bed, it's just a feather in the center of a bunch of Magebloom fibers, and it'll make an orange Magebloom bed. These beds can be further customized to change their colors. If you take a block of a specific type and right click on the Starbuncle with it, it will give him preferred pathing to walk on this block type. You can also command Starbuckles to transfer items from one chest to another. Shift right click on a chest, then right click on a Starbuncle, then right click on the Starbuncle and shift right click on a chest, and he will transfer the items from one location to the other, moving from chest to chest. It may take some figuring out to get it done right, and can be a little confusing at times, but eventually you'll start transferring the items for you. Now, there are 2 ways to get back your Starbuncle token in case you want to move him. You can either kill him with a sword, and that will remove the Starbuncle, or you can do something much more humane. But to do that, we have to learn a new spell, and that is going to be Dispel. To make the glyph of Dispel, we are going to need Abjuration Essence and Milk. So what we'll do is we will put the parchment onto our Scribe table. We then put our spellbook on the table and say we want to make Dispel. We press select, and the ingredients will be drawn out of the nearby chest, put onto the Scribe table, and create the Dispel glyph for us. We then get the Dispel glyph, we unlock it, and we can make Projectile Dispel as a new spell. And if we cast a spell on our Starbuncle, it'll turn him back into the Starbuncle token, which will still have the stored commands on him so we can use him for later. Onto Wixies and potions. If we get a witch to about half health and then cast Dispel on her, it will turn her into a Wixie token. The Wixie token can then be put into enchanting apparatus along with brewing stand, emerald, crafting table, and oak sapling on the pedestals to create a Wixie charm. The Wixie charm can then be right-clicked onto a cauldron. This will start drawing in mystical energies and will convert the cauldron into a Wixie cauldron and summon a Wixie. For a Wixie to operate, it needs source nearby, so we're going to put down a creative source jar to charge its cauldron. When the cauldron is charged, you will see that it'll be filled with this purple goo. Wixies serve two purposes. They can create potions for you, and they can do automatic crafting. They'll take crafting ingredients out of a chest nearby to do the crafting. To set the crafting recipe you want, you simply take the item and right-click on the Wixie cauldron with it, and this will set the recipe. I now have my Wixie set to converting gold blocks into gold bars for me. She will do this automatically as long as there's available source nearby. I can toggle her doing this on-off by having a lever next to the cauldron and giving a redstone signal to turn it off, making it so she will no longer craft and waste gold. I can also dye my Wixie different colors by taking dye and right-clicking on her with it to change her colors. You can also do this with Starbuncles in case you're curious. You can have Wixies craft multiple things at once by putting a pedestal next to the Wixie cauldron and putting the item you want crafted onto that pedestal. Turning off the cauldron will turn off all crafting, and turning it back on will make it so she will begin crafting again. With a pedestal nearby, she will alternate between the two recipes in which she chooses to craft, going back and forth in this case between making sticks and making steps. You can turn off specific pedestals by activating a redstone signal on them, making it so she will forgo crafting whatever is on the pedestal and only craft what is on the cauldron. You can also turn off the totality of the recipe, but if you turn off the totality of the recipe and leave the pedestal on, she will do no additional crafting. The auto crafting is a nice fun feature, but in reality is kind of pointless. The main point and purpose of the Wixie is to craft potions. Now, to get this started, you are going to need potion jars. Potion jars are crafted by taking normal source jars and combining them with abjuration essence. Once those are together, you get a source jar and you can put it on the ground near a Wixie cauldron. Then you put the ingredients required for the crafting of a potion into a chest, but only the ingredients needed. In this case, I'm putting the nether wart into this potion crafter, and I can tell her to make awkward potions for me. If I put awkward potion onto the pedestal and then turn back on her process of crafting, she will make sticks, but then she will also take the nether wart out of the chest, put it into her cauldron, and she will fill the nearest by potion jar to start making the new potion. If I want her to start making a speed potion, I can put sugar into the nearby chest. Then I simply have to put a speed potion onto the pedestal, and she will take the sugar from the chest and the awkward potion from the nearby potion jar and combine those together to put new speed potions into a speed potion jar that is nearby. Now we're going to mix the potions up a little bit. If we take 4 blaze rods, 2 abjuration essences, and 2 gold blocks and put them on pedestals surrounding an enchanting apparatus, then put a potion jar into the center, we will get a new item, the potion melder. The potion melder is a little tricksy to use, so let's get into its full workings. The purpose of the potion melder is to mix potions together. Here we have a potion jar with potion of swiftness, and over here we have a potion jar with potion of strength. If we fill the potion of swiftness jar by adding these bottles to it, and do the same with the strength jar, we will have an adequate amount of potions ready for the mixing. Our hopes is to make these potions of swiftness and strength at the same time. Now, to get the potions mixing, you are going to right-click on one of the jars, then right-click on the potion meddler, then right-click on the other jar you want to mix in, and again right-click on the meddler. Then you're going to right-click on the meddler and right-click on an empty jar. When there's an adequate amount of source nearby and enough potions of both kinds required for mixing, it will mix them together and fill up a jar with the new mixed potion. Each meddling takes 2% of a full jar out for the proper mixing. 1% left over will not mix it up. And in case I forgot to mention it, all of these commands require a domain wand to properly input and a source supply nearby to supply the melder. There are 3 methods for getting potions outside of jars. The simplest is having an empty bottle. and right-clicking on the jar, and this will fill up the bottle with that potion that was in the jar. The second method involves creating the potion diffuser. This is made with an enchanting apparatus, 3 gold, and 3 archwood, the campfire being in the center of the enchanting apparatus, the other items being on the pedestals. Once you have the potion diffuser, you put it down nearby, and using your domain wand, you right-click on the potion jar and right-click on the diffuser, and the diffuser will suck the potion out of the potion jar and diffuse it to entities nearby, giving them the effects of the potion without them having to drink it, and giving it to all nearby creatures. The final method of moving potions out of a potion jar involves transferring a potion from a potion jar into another potion jar, and that is using a Starbuncle. Now, the Starbuncle to do this requires a specific item, and that is a Wixie hat. The Wixie hat is crafted by surrounding gold with a mage fiber. Once you have it made, you can put it onto a Starbuncle and give him a cute little hat, and then you can give him commands to right-click on him, right-click on the potion jar. He is now storing potion location, then right-click on the potion jar and right-click on him, and he is taking the potions out of that location. Whenever that potion jar is full, the Starbuncle will endeavor to transfer those potions from the one location to the other, taking it out and putting it in. There's a few more things you can do with Starbuckles which are more advanced than the basics, and those involve making new items called the Scrolls of Allow, Don't Allow, and Equals. The Scroll of Allow is crafted by taking blank parchment and a chest, combining them together in a crafting table to make a Allow scroll. You then take the Allow scroll and you put it onto a Scribe table. Then you shift right click items onto the Allow scroll, and these are the items that Starbuckles are allowed to use. You then take your Allow scroll and you give it to a Starbuncle, and now he has an item filter of which items he's allowed to use and which ones he's not. So any items that were on that list which we allowed, he will store into a chest he's commanded to store in, which is this chest here. The Don't Allow is the opposite of the Allow list. It is crafted with a blank parchment and cobblestone, and it creates the Deny scroll. You put it on the table, shift right click on the table, and now he's no longer allowed to pick up cobblestone. We give him the Deny list, then if we throw cobblestone down, he will not store the cobblestone. The final is the Mimic scroll. The Mimic scroll is by taking an Allow scroll and combining it in a crafting table with a chest, making the Allow scroll. The Allow scroll is like the item filter from earlier. We put it onto the side of a chest with an item frame, and now only items that are already inside the chest will be placed in the chest. We can put this red dye in there, and we can not put the green dye in there. The Starbuncle will not pick up the green dye because it's not in the chest, but he will pick up the red dye and put it into the chest because it was already in there. When it comes to your Novice spellbook, it can only cast level 1 glyphs. However, there are 3 levels of glyph. So let's level up our spellbook to a Mage spellbook from Novice spellbook to make it so we can cast level 2 glyphs. To do this, you need to take your ordinary Novice spellbook and put it into a crafting table with obsidian, 3 diamonds, blocks of quartz, and 2 blaze rods. And this will make the Mage's spellbook, which can now cast level 2 glyphs. First level 2 glyph we're going to be getting with this new Mage's spellbook is going to be AoE, or Area of Effect. We have a scribe table and a blank scroll, and so we right click on the table with our spellbook. Then we go to select AoE from the tier 2 or level 2 glyphs. Press select, and it requires the firework star. We add that to the table, it'll create the new spell glyph for us, and we unlock that in our spellbook. Now AoE is an augment spell, and augments work a little bit different. So what you need to do to work an augment is first you need to select a form. We're going to select projectile. Then you need to choose an effect. The effect we're going to choose is break. Then you can add an augment to the effect. So augments augment effects. They do not get placed before forms, and they do not get placed on forms, they get placed on effects. So now we have projectile, break, AoE. Big break costs this amount of mana. When we cast big break, it's going to break a 2x2. We can further augment the spell by adding more AoE to it. It will cost more mana now, and it will break a 3x3. If we're feeling destructive, we can augment it to the limit of spell augmentations. This will cost all of our mana pool to cast, and will break a very large area of spell. If we were not in creative mode, we'd only be able to cast a spell once before waiting to regen. Rituals. Time for rituals. We're going to make it nighttime as well, and we're going to start with how you get rituals done. To get rituals done, you are going to need a ritual brazier. To make the ritual brazier, you take an arcane pedestal, combine it with a source gem block, and 3 gold ingots and a crafting table. Once you have the ritual brazier, you put it on the ground, and if you so wish, you can have source jar nearby to power it, but not all rituals require it. Then you want to make a tablet of rituals. There are a lot of different ritual tablets out there. If we go into the War Notebook, we can even see all the different rituals that are available by clicking on the ritual section and see there's a large list. We are only going to concern ourselves with a few rituals from this list. First, the demo ritual is the ritual of sunrise, made with the tablet of sunrise. Tablet of sunrise is made with blazing archwood, 3 dandelions, and a clock, or interestingly enough, 1 blazing archwood log and a sunflower. As you can see here, it is clearly night outside, and if we right click the tablet onto the table, it will start the ritual, but it is not activated yet. We then right click on the ritual again with an empty hand, it'll activate the ritual, and this one will turn night into day. The next ritual we're going to work with is going to be the Ritual of Awakening. What we are going to want to do is we're going to create it by using all the archwood saplings, some flourishing archwood logs, and 4 source gems and a crafting table together. Then we are going to take our Tablet of Awakening and a ritual brazier to a nearby archwood tree. We put the tablet onto the brazier, then we activate it, it'll draw in power, and it'll turn this archwood tree into a guardian. This archwood guardian can then be told to guard specific areas by right-clicking on him and right-clicking on a block, and this will set his home, and he will attack nearby hostile entities and defend the area. One of the other purposes for the Awakening tablet and ritual is to create Amethyst golem. If you do the ritual near some budding amethyst instead of a tree, it will turn the budding amethyst into an amethyst golem. The third and final use of the Ritual Awakening is to get us some nerds. This also is where we learn how to augment rituals. Start by placing the tablet into the ritual brazier. Then take the augmentive item required. The augmented required for this one is a book and quill. We add to the ritual has now been augmented with the book and quill. Each ritual will tell you which augments are needed. Then when we activate the ritual, it will instead give us a bookworm charm. Bookworm charms summon bookworms, but to summon them, they need to be summoned on a storage lectern. The storage lectern is made in an enchanting apparatus with a lectern and 4 chests on the pedestals. When placed into the world, it does nothing unless you add bookworms to it. Then once there are bookworms on the lectern, you can shift right click on a chest, then right click on the lectern, and it will add the chest's inventory to the lectern. The lectern is basically an advanced storage system. So once you click on the lectern, it'll show you all the items and all the chests it is linked to, and it gives you a crafting recipe. So if we put iron into this chest, we now have iron available within our lectern system. Each additional link or chest requires additional bookworm. Once you've maxed out the amount of links you have, you can no longer continue linking. So we now have 4 connections, and if we want the 5th connection, we have 5 connections but only 4 bookworms, and thus the final connection will not work until we add an additional bookworm to do the organizing for us. Lecterns can be linked to other lecterns by right-clicking on one lectern, then right-clicking on the other, and now they are linked. The purpose of linking them is these inventories here can now be accessed by the linked lectern. Lecterns only have a certain amount of range, which they can operate at, but I can then link this lectern to this lectern, and again, operate in the inventory from the chest behind, so you can set these up all around your base and get multiple links to work with. The lectern can also access inventories of chests directly next to it. If the chest is directly next to the inventory of a linked lectern, then the bookworms will take the items out of that chest and put them into the network chests instead. If you want to do further storage shenanigans, you can make a repository out of archwood logs and gold nuggets. This will make a double chest inventory in a one chest space, or you can just make a fancy archwood chest, which doesn't do anything special, but it looks pretty, out of archwood planks and a gold nugget. Now you can do further organization by naming chests. To name chests, you need to create the glyph of naming. Now to make naming work, what you do is you take touch for this example here, and you take naming. Then we'll name the spell Frank, and whatever entity I interact with the spell with will be named Frank. So pig is now named Frank, and the chest we threw on the ground is named Frank. We can even change the name of this egg to be a Frank egg, and the pig that spawns from the Frank egg will be a Frank pig. Chests that are already put on the ground can also be named by casting the spell onto the chest and change its name to Frank. If this chest is linked to the setup, then it will actually have its own inventory that we can look up, which is specifically the Frank inventory. Thus, we have the general inventory of all items, and we have the Frank inventory of the Frank items for organizational purposes if you wish to do organization. More advanced storage and organization can be achieved with a display case. The display case is crafted normally using glass, observer, and archwood planks. How a display case works is you put a display case down into the world. You then bind the display case to an inventory you want the display case to detect. Shift right click on the inventory, then click on the display case, and it'll detect items in that inventory. Then you add an item to the inventory of the display case. In this case, if the display case detects more than 0 redstone inside this bound inventory, it will emit a signal. We can make the number of detection greater by right clicking on it and increase the number. If we shift right click, it'll increase the number by a factor of 8. We can decrease this number by left clicking on the display case, and shift left clicking will decrease it by a factor of 8. We can also invert this by shift right clicking on the display case with a domain mod, making it so it will emit a signal if there is less than 8 redstone inside the chest. So once we put a high amount in there, it will no longer send out a signal. Further automation and strangeness can be found inside the spell prism. The spell prism is crafted by having a block of quartz at the center of 4 archwood planks and then gold ingots in each corner. The spell prism redirects spells sent into it. If we use our mind range spell and cast it at the spell prism, it is going to redirect the projectile and break a block facing the direction the spell prism itself is facing. The little target is going to be facing towards you when you place the spell prism to redirect it, and it'll redirect any ranged spell put into it. Also, if you have an observer looking at the spell prism right next to it, whenever a spell is cast, the observer will detect that spell is cast and emit a redstone signal. If you, instead of wanting to redirect a spell, you want to negate them completely, projectile spells, you can make a void prism. A void prism is a spell prism surrounded by obsidian. This will void ranged spells that hit it, so the spell will no longer break and it'll just disappear into the void prism. You yourself do not specifically have to cast spells. You can have other things cast spells for you. But to do this, first you need to make a spell scroll. A spell scroll is made by putting a blank piece of parchment onto a scribe table. Then you decide on a spell that you want to be casted. For this case here, we're going to use Magic Missile. Then you shift right click with that spell selected on the table, and it will create a spell scroll of Magic Missile, and it'll contain the details of the spell within it. You can then take Manipulation Essence and shift right click on that spell if you want to hide what the spell does, so people know it's called Magic Missile, but they don't know how it's made. Then, once you have the spell scroll, you want to make a basic spell turret. Basic spell turrets are crafted with 4 source gems, 1 block of redstone, and 4 gold ingots. You put those all together, you get a basic spell turret. You can then take your spell scroll and set it on your spell turret once it's placed in the world. It will face whatever direction you are facing. Whenever a redstone signal is given to a spell turret, it will cast that spell. However, to cast a spell, it requires a source jar filled with source nearby to draw upon to cast the spell. You can combine the spell turret with a clock on the pedestal in an enchanting apparatus to get a timed spell turret. The timed spell turret will cast the spell repeatedly and automatically. You can choose how often it does by right-clicking on it to increase the amount of time, or left-clicking on it to decrease the amount of time of which it casts the spell. Each cast will require source from a source jar. You can lock in the amount of seconds by shift right-clicking on it with a domain wand, making it so the seconds can no longer be modified by accidentally right-clicking on it. You can also stop a timer turret from automatically casting spells by adding a redstone signal to it. You can combine a basic spell turret with a source gem block and a blazing rod inside an enchanting apparatus to get an enhanced spell turret. The enhanced spell turret will cast a spell at half the source cost of the normal spell. You can also take a basic spell turret and put it into a crafting table to make an adjustable spell turret. The adjustable spell turret will rotate the face anywhere you click on it, then click on a block with the Dominion wand. There seems to be an insane amount of things you can do with this automation. I think you could potentially even create a computer with it, which I mean, you can already do that with redstone signals in Minecraft, so this probably just makes it a little bit easier, and it can look pretty while you do it. Upgrading your armor. Armor upgrades. The sorcerer's armor, battle mage armor, whatever armor you have, is useful, but it can be made better. But there are a few requirements to get this done. The first process to getting this enhanced armor is making blank threads. These are crafted with 3 gold nuggets and 6 Magebloom fibers set up like this. Then you want to make an alteration table. The alteration table is taking a scribe table and combine it with 4 Magebloom in a crafting recipe. Then you place the alteration table down and you take one of your pieces of armor, let's say the sorcerer's chest wrap, and you right click it onto the table. And you'll get this number 2. Now it can be augmented in the alteration table to become better. The first augmentation we're going to make is the threads of magic capacity. Thread of magic capacity is made with the enchanting apparatus. So to do this, we have 3 source berries and we have 3 Mageblooms on a table. Then we take the blank thread and we put it into the center of the enchanting apparatus, and it will turn the blank thread into the threads of capacity. If we look at the stats of the sorcerer's wrap, it's plus 5 armor, plus 30 max mana, and plus 1 mana regen. We can then apply the threads to the armor by right clicking it onto the table, and when we take the sorcerer's wrap out, we will now see that it is plus 30 max mana, plus 20 max mana, and plus 1 magic regen. If we want to take this enchantment off, we right click on the magic threads of capacity and the armor goes back to its normal form. In your Warden textbook, under armor and perks, if you click on magic armor, it will show you this really confusing table right here. This table here lets you know what each armor's thread slots are like. This is being at tier 1 armor, it will have a tier 1 slot, and then this will have a tier 2 slot, and then if we look at the other ones, we can basically see what they will have available to them. Each armor has 3 different tiers, and different slots are unlocked at each tier. The slots provide more augmentation to the armor. To upgrade the armor to the next tier, you will need an enchanting apparatus, and whatever kind of armor it is, you'll need 2 blaze rods to take normal armor to tier 2. The tier 2 sorceress wrap has an empty level 3 slot and an empty level 2 slot. Tier 2 armor is just better even without the extra slots. The difference between them we can see here. The tier 1 is plus 30 and plus 1 mana regen, whereas the tier 2 is plus 2 and plus 60 max mana. Now the additional slots, when we put it into the augmentation table, shows a 3 slot and a 2 slot. If we take the threads of magic capacity and we put it in there, we can actually put it in there twice. You'll then see that it has plus 30% max mana and plus 20% max mana. These 2 layers of magic capacity are actually a lie though. It will only take the lowest of the values. It is like enchantment. If you had sharpness 3 on a sword and sharpness 2 on a sword, then you wouldn't get sharpness 5. You would actually only be getting sharpness 2 as it'll take the lowest value. So when it comes to augments, only have one of any kind of augment on armor and only have one kind of augment per set. What does that mean? Well, if we have Sorcerer's Leggings as well with max mana capacity added to them, this will have mana capacity 1, this will have mana capacity 2. If we equip both of them, we will get a warning that says perks you already have will only reveal the effects per perk once, meaning we will not get more mana capacity. We're only going to be getting the lowest mana capacity of mana capacity 1. Now there are 3 tiers, and so the 3rd tier of magic armor is gotten by combining 2 ender pearls and a chorus fruit in the enchanting apparatus with the level 2 gear. And when they are combined together with an aggregate mana source, it'll give you tier 3 magical augmented armor. Onwards to artifacts. In the getting started, there are several artifacts you want to craft and work with. The basic artifacts you want to make can be made in a basic crafting table. There's the mundane belt, the dull trinket, and the ring of potential. This is our main concern in these early items. The next thing we are going to do with this ring of potential is we're going to put it into our enchanting apparatus here. But first we are going to add 4 diamonds, 2 ender pearls, and 2 source gems. This will create a ring of lesser discount. When this ring is put into a ring slot in our baubles inventory, it makes it so we have plus 10 max mana, plus 1 mana regen, and it reduced the cost of all spells by 10. If we want to, we can upgrade this ring further from a lesser ring of discount into a greater ring of discount with 4 diamonds, 2 blaze rods, and 2 source gems. Further magic items we can make, which are quite useful to us early on in the enchanting apparatus, include the jar of light, made with a bottle in the enchanting apparatus, and on the pedestals 2 pieces of glass, 2 redstone laths, and 4 glowstone. The jar of light can be right-clicked and it'll emit a light behind you, a mage light. This mage light, once you move a certain amount of distance, will appear under you again and it will follow you constantly, always giving you an adequate amount of illumination. When you right-click on the jar again, it will get rid of the source of light. The other item jar that we're going to make as a basic item is the jar of voiding. The jar of voiding can then be put onto a scribe table and you can put items into it which you do not want to pick up anymore. Shift right click the item onto the voiding jar that is on the scribe table. Then when the voiding jar is in your inventory, shift right click with it to activate. It will then destroy any of the items you would pick up that you have on your voiding list. Finally, for the artifacts, let's move on to warp scrolls. A warp scroll is crafted using a lapis lazuli, a blank piece of parchment, and source gems in a crafting table to make a basic warp scroll. The basic warp scroll can then be shift right clicked to a location and it'll record that location in the warp scroll. It will then consume that warp scroll upon right clicking with it again, deleting it from your inventory and teleporting you back to that location. The warp scroll can be made better in the enchanting apparatus using 4 blazestone powder and 2 ender pearls on the pedestal, then placing the warp scroll into the center of that, and it can create a stabilized warp scroll. The stabilized warp scroll will also save a location. However, when you warp with it, it doesn't teleport you, but it rather creates a portal, which you can then travel through to teleport to that location. This portal stays constant in the world, and you can also throw items through it, and they will also be teleported to that location along with you or any other monsters that go through it. Finally, if you make a smooth source stone portal, any given size, as long as there's 1 space through it, and you have a source jar nearby filled with source, you can take a warp scroll and throw it through the portal to create a new warp portal to a customized location. The portal doesn't require to be upright, and all of them will teleport you and any entities thrown into them into that new location, making it a nice way to set up portals to get around the world in. Now that we're in the wizard tower, let's do a little bit on decorations. So, decorations can be made through various different means. The first decoration we're going to look at is a light source decoration. So this light source decoration is made by combining source gems with archwood planks to create an archwood sconce. If we happen to have the light spell learned through the conjure mage light glyph, we can then make a conjure mage light spell, and if we shift right click with the touch spell onto the sconce, it'll put a mage light fire into it, which will burn at whatever color we have it set to. Now, one of my favorite things to do with these colors set is we go to mage light and we go to the color chooser and we click on rainbow and we create that. And then when we have the Mage Light fire put down, it will slowly shift colors between different Mage Light colors, and it looks pretty. A different Mage Light holder is the Mage Light torch. It works exactly the same as sconces, however it can be put on ceilings and floors, and the fire can change direction. More practical decorative blocks are these deceptive blocks. As you can see, we can see it through the sky here, and somewhere there should be an invisible wall. Now all these deceptive blocks are made with essences. So you take a Magebloom block, which is crafted using 4 Magebloom fibers, and then you surround it with one of these essences. A conjuration essence surrounded with Magebloom blocks will make a mirror weave. The mirror weave will reflect whichever block you tell it to reflect. So we put down a bunch of mirror weave here, and it's just normal mirror weave blocks. We take the stone bricks, we right click on it, it will now look like stone bricks. If we want to make it look like Magebloom, we right click on it with the Magebloom and it'll look like Magebloom. Manipulation essence combined with the Magebloom will create Skyweave. Skyweave will look like the sky block above it. Skyweave can be turned off though if you cast Dispel on it, and it'll turn back into normal Skyweave. Cast Dispel on again, it'll reactivate. You can also cast Light onto a sky block, and it'll hold a light source in it, and you can do the same with the mirror weave. If you shift right click and cast light on it, this block will now emit light. Ghost weave is like mirror weave. It can also imitate whichever block it has. However, if you cast invisibility on it, it'll make the block turn invisible. This invisibility effect can be dispelled by casting Dispel on the ghost weave. The final decorative weave block is false weave, and that is made with air essence. False weave looks like any other block, however you can walk through false weave, and so it can be an illusionary block to lead to secret passages. All these blocks can be detected and seen by casting Sense Magic. So once you've learned the glyph of Sense Magic, which is a tier 2 glyph, and you cast Sense Magic, it will let you see the true nature of all the various different illusionary blocks that have been put down. We've been using this enchanting apparatus for a while now, and it actually does more than just create blocks. It can actually do enchantment for you. All the enchantment recipes can be found in the Warren notebook underneath the enchanting section. There is a whole lot of different enchantments, and they are just all the base game enchantments that you can add to items through the enchanting and using the enchanting pedestals. It works like any of the other enchanting apparatus interactions. We take the blocks that we want for the enchantment, this being sharpness, and we put them onto the pedestal surrounding it. So this sharpness will require 2 blocks of quartz, 1 block of lapis, and 1 source gem block. Then we put the sword into it, and it will enchant the sword and turn it into a sharpness 1 sword. If you want sharpness 2, you cannot do a sharpness 1 enchanting ritual again. Instead, you have to do the sharpness 2 enchanting ritual. This will also take a small amount of source every time you wish to complete an enchantment. Now finally, you probably want a tier 3 spellbook. You probably want to get the Archmage spellbook. However, to do this, we need to complete Ars Nouveau's boss battle. So let's go do that. To do Ars Nouveau's boss battle, we need to make a tablet of summoning windles. So the tablet is made with a vexing archwood log, windle horns, windle fangs, whatever, just 3 windle stuffs, and a block of lapis lazuli, and this will make the tablet of windle summoning. It can also be crafted through 1 block of lapis, a bow, an emerald block, and a sword if you haven't found these windle pieces or you want to hold on to them. You then want to take this tablet of windle summoning and do a windle summoning ritual. However, doing a normal windle summoning ritual will just summon a random windle for you. So here we go, we've got some windle bat fellow. Yeah, well, I'll keep summoning until it runs out of power. So this is a way to gather windles, but won't give us the boss, and the boss is what we want to deal with. To get the boss, we have to again put the tablet of summoned windles down, and then we must take 1 piece of every kind of windle and augment the summoning with them. If you do not have all the pieces required, then have a very full source gem nearby and activate the tablet of summoning windle to get large amounts of windles to be summoned, kill them, get all the required bits, turn it off, and then do this step here. Now this step is where things get tricky, because when it comes to a boss battle in Minecraft, if you do not have very good gear, then the bosses are quite dangerous and can kill you. So you want to cheese them. Different ways of cheesing them is upon summoning, you can tame them in one way or another. But of course, sometimes their explosions break normal blocks, so you want to use obsidian to prevent this. However, when it comes to summoning the Windle boss, this does not work. Because when the Windle boss is summoned, the Windle Chimera is its proper name, the summoning obliterates blocks all around it, thus you need to have a rather larger containment container, such of one as this size. The block type doesn't matter, but it needs to be 13 by 13 at least, with the Windle box at the bottom, and it needs to be at least 7 tall. Now, blocks directly adjacent to the altar will not be destroyed, and it is only along this level here where the block destruction begins. So if you think you can imitate a shape like this, this will be a safe enough shape to work with. Now within this shape, I also recommend building a structure a bit like this, having about 4 of these panels available at half height. You also want to have a door you can run in and out of, and in the structure you want to have it be about 1 block down and then on a slab. With having a setup like this, you have full vision of the arena, and the monster cannot attack you, and you can fire arrows at it comfortably and safely. Now this step of having the half slabs is very important, because Windles summon wolves, which are 1 block high, and so they can get at you. Now the other option, which is slightly more risky, which you can take instead, is also building this prism-like grid on the top so you can look down, and then build this wooden tower structure here. Now this is important as the other one, depending on what one you want to do. And I'll get to a moment why it's so important. So we are going to enter survival mode, and we are going to perform the ritual of summoning the Windle once more. Now we could gear ourselves up to a ridiculous degree, or we could just augment the summoning and do what I'm about to do now. So Minecraft bosses and enemies in general have some interesting features and mechanics about them, which is they have a detection range of how far they can see and what they can detect and what they can't detect. Now they can't really detect you through half a block because they have a line of sight reticle that comes out from them which looks for you. So as long as the Windle cannot detect you, it cannot fight you. And so in this situation here, without the Windle having detected us, even though it does its magic to summon allies and various other things, we are perfectly safe. So the wolves have seen us, but the Windle has not. And our basic goal is to keep the Windle knocked back into this corner and out of detection range for us. And we're just going to continually shoot him with our bow and with our arrows. Now unfortunately here, the Windle has detected us, which we really do not want. So we're going to have to elude him by climbing up onto this structure here, and he's no longer in our detection radar. We're going to sneak, and we're just going to shoot him with arrows down here, and we're going to continually harm. Now, in his current form, the Windle cannot break blocks, but as the battle progresses, he will power up into a form that can break blocks, and that is why we do not want to be detected by him. For as long as we are not detected, the Windle will not target us, and as long as he does not target us, he cannot hurt us. So staying stealth here and shooting him is the ideal situation, because we will be outside his detection, his hitbox is rather large, and we can continually damage him without being in a difficult fight. So on mod maker's side of things, when you want to make a difficult boss, you're going to have to give it boss detection. Sort of look for things, destroy the terrain if you want to have terrain destroying, or whatever that case may be. The Ender Dragon will go look for you to fight you. But in this case here, because he's outside our detection range and we're basically just stealth killing him, this battle is ridiculously in our favor, even though we have no armor. In normal cases, this Windle Chimera would one-shot us, but in this battle, we can wind it quite handily, even if it is using this very high-powered bow and instant damage arrows, and we went through a whole lot of them, so you're going to need a lot of arrows if you don't have the high-powered bow. But once you have him killed, in whatever cheesy manner you decide, I really do recommend making it so he can't see you and abusing his detection range and hiding. Anyways, once you have that done and you've beaten him, you'll get the Windle tablet. And with the Window Tablet, we can finally become an Arch Mage. If we take our normal Mage spellbook, and we take a Nether Star, a Totem of the Undying, 3 Ender Pearls, 2 Emeralds, and the Window Tribune, and we combine that all together, we get the very expensive Archmage spellbook. And having the Archmage spellbook will increase the amount of magic we can do, and it will also unlock tier 3 glyphs for us. So let's go get one of those unlocked glyphs. So the tier 3 glyph we are interested in is the glyph of Blink. Blink is a teleportation spell. If we have projectile, Blink, whenever we cast Blink from the projectile, it'll teleport us to the location we're looking at. It's a very handy traveling traversal spell. There is actually something rather fun though you can do with the Blink spell, which is if you have a warp scroll which is bound to a location and you put it in your offhand when you cast Blink, and then you cast Blink on a target, it'll teleport that creature to that location. So you can teleport people to your prison or 1,000 feet in the air, whatever, by combining the Blink spell with the warp scroll spell, making it very, very powerful. And with that, we've actually covered everything in the Getting Started section of the War Notebook. However, even with that said, we are just getting started, because there's a few more things to cover before we've truly done a how-to of Ars Nouveau. So next, let's get into sourcing source. I've shown you the agricultural source sourcer, but there's actually more ways to get source than the agricultural source getter. The first one is the Vitalic Source Link. The Vitalic Source Link is made with glistening melons, source gems, and gold ingots, and when placed near a source jar, it will generate source by animals breeding, growing up, and being killed. So we have a pack of cows here, and when we feed them wheat, they will make little babies, and this will generate source into the source Vita Link, and it will generate more source. And when the babies grow up, they'll generate source. And whenever we kill the cows, we will generate source. So if you set one of these up near your animal farm, you can basically generate free source from that. The next source link is the Volcanic Source Link. It is made with a lava bucket in the center instead of glistening melons. The Volcanic Source Link burns items to produce source. So if we have flammable material like wood, it will destroy these items over time and generate source out of their destruction. At the same time, it also generates magma blocks under it, and these magma blocks will eventually be turned into lava blocks. Burning blazing archwood or archwood logs will produce additional source from the Volcanic Source Link, making it produce more source. But even with this, I have found that the Volcanic Source Link is rather slow at producing source. Now, a way to produce ridiculous amounts of source is by using the Alchemical Source Link. It is made like the other source links, but with a brewing stand in the center. And what it does is it destroys potions from potion jars and produces source from this process. The amount of source you get is based on the duration of the potion and the power of the potion. Now, a potion that when destroyed that produces a ridiculously large amount of source is Potion of the Turtle Master. That is because it is 20 seconds on 2 effects, one of them at power 6, the other at power 4. Potion of the Turtle Master is made by taking a turtle shell and combining it with awkward potions. Then its power can be increased by adding glowstone dust. By simply increasing its power to the higher tier of Potion of the Turtle Master, and then adding it to potion jars near the source link, per tick, it can fill up an entire source jar with potion power, which makes it ridiculously good. So I would recommend, if you want to go about the alchemical route of getting a turtle farm going so you can make turtle helmets, to make these turtle master potions, because they produce so much source so quickly. It is absurd. The final source link is the Mycelia source link. That takes mushroom stew to make in the center, and the Mycelia link eats food to produce mana. The more saturation the food has, the more mana that is produced when placed on the link or placed on the pedestal next to it. If it happens to be magic food, such as source berries, it will produce even more source from the process. You don't always need to break a source jar and pick it up to transport it around the world. There are other ways to move source around, and those are with source relays. So the base source relay is made with a source gem block and 6 gold. You can then put that down, your source relay, and using a domain wand, you can transfer source from one jar to another jar through the source relay. So how it works is you right click on a source jar, then you right click on a relay. Then you right click on the relay and you right click on the source jar you want the source to go to. Then it will transfer the source from one location to the other via this transference. The relay can be turned on and off using a redstone lever or redstone signal to stop it from doing the transferring. The source relay can be upgraded in the Enchanting apparatus to make new kinds of relay. The first one is you take the source relay and you surround it with 4 chests and you'll get the source relay collector. Now what the collector does is it doesn't actually need a source jar to be bound to it to collect source. Instead, it will just take source from whatever nearby available source locations it is not bound to send them to. So it'll just suck this up from it. Now the inverse of that is the source dispenser. It is made from a normal source relay combined with hoppers in the Enchanting apparatus, and the source will take source from a bound location and send it to any nearby location automatically without needing to be bound to that location. And it will prioritize the nearest source location first. Another augmentation to the source relay in the Enchanter can be the source splitter. The source splitter is made with quartz and lapis, 4 quartz, 4 lapis in the Enchanting apparatus, and the source relay splitter can be send and take from multiple locations, having to do the binding process the same, but once we have it activated, you'll see that it will send it to take from 2 locations and send it to 1 location as one of the other locations is filled. Now, the final source relay upgrade you can do is the source warper. This is done with ender pearls and popped chorus fruit, 4 of each in the Enchanting apparatus. The source warper can be bound to a source jar, and then you want to bind it to another source relay, which is a far distance away. Then you can bind this source relay to give it to a location. And what this does is it teleports the source. So when we turn it on from the lever, it will take source from this location and send it through and teleport it all the way to this location. However, when the source relay is running from a distance of, I believe it's 40 blocks or further, there's a 20% chance that the source being transported will be lost. But if you want to transport source ridiculously long distances, you can use the source relay warper to teleport those long distances. Remember that Amethyst golem we had in the beginning? Well, he actually has a use to him, which is beyond just looking cute. And that use is, if you summon him inside an Amethyst cluster and using a domain wand, you set his home to a chest, he will farm the Amethyst cluster for you, and he will convert normal Amethyst blocks into these budding Amethyst gems to take the Amethyst clusters off and basically work with. So he will farm and operate over time, breaking them, and then he will automatically store them into the chest if the chest is set to his home, picking them up and putting them in there for you. Then you can have Starbuckles run along and gather this for you and bring it back to your base. And this is a whole automation system you can have set up with the golem to automatically farm Amethyst shards for you so you can get more of them. Some more automation from the automation section is creating a spell sensor. Now, spell sensor is made by taking a shulk sensor, putting it into an enchantment apparatus, and once it's converted through, it'll make a spell sensor. Spell sensors, whenever a spell nearby is cast, will emit a magic signal if it is cast near enough to them. You can use your domain wand on the detector to instead set it to resolve mode or cast mode. Some spells take longer time than others to cast, so the resolve mode is when the spell is resolved, and the cast mode is the initial moment that the spell is cast, the detectors will go off. You could then hook these up to spell turrets to cast spells immediately in response to detecting a spell being cast, and a whole bunch of various different fun, weird things. Around the world, you might have noticed these little whirly spirals flying about. Whirly spirals can be found just anywhere wherever nature is found, and to activate a whirly spirl, to get it into a whirly spirl item, which is the whirly spirl token, what you have to do is you have to grow a tree next to a whirly spirl and make it happy. When it sees you've made a tree for it, it'll become happy and it'll turn into a Whirlsprings token. The Whirlsprings token can then be combined in an enchanting apparatus with these items here, the Magebloom seed, Magebloom itself, diamond, oak sapling, spruce sapling, birch sapling, wheat seeds, and a source gem to create a Whirlsprings charm. A Whirlsprings charm has to be used on a nearby flower. When it is used on that flower, it will create the Whirlsprings flower or blossom, and your pet Whirlsprings will be summoned to the location. Now this Whirlsprings is quite unhappy because it doesn't have a diversity of plant life around it. And what Whirlsprings want to do is they want plants nearby so they can power up their flower, and then using a nearby source of source from a source jar, they can take those blocks and eventually, once it's filled up, they will emit them into this chest. So they will auto-farm plants for you without actually destroying the plant. The more plants the Whirlsprings has around its home, the happier it gets. The happier it gets, the more it produces. The more variety there is of plants, the more likely it's produced. You can ask the Whirlsprings if it likes the block by right-clicking on it with that block, and they'll tell you it's excited to have that nearby. So this Whirlsprings likes grass blocks, but has enough of them. Whirlsprings will produce all the blocks nearby that it likes into a chest, and all these resources will go next to the nearest biased chest, and the source powers it will then set them into the chest. So Whirlsprings can basically auto-farm for you without having to break blocks, and they can produce all sorts of plants if they're nearby and within their local area. The equivalent to the Whirlsprings, but when it comes to animals, is the Drygmys. The Drygmys can be found in forests and places where they're animals, and if you give them a windle horn, throw it onto the ground, he will pick it up, he'll give you a little dance, and he'll turn into this Drygmy token, which we saw earlier. Drygmy token, if combined with source gems, any kind of fish, seeds, carrots, apple, and wheat, inside an enchanting apparatus will turn into a Drygmy charm. You then want to take the Drygmy charm and place it on a piece of mossy cobblestone. This will gather in energies and turn it into a Drygmy Stonehenge and summon the Drygmy. Now, what the Drygmy does is nearby animals make him happy, and the more animals there are, the more happy he is. And he will basically do his little dance and enchant them with his power, wherever he's hiding right now, and he will automatically farm those animal products into a chest without having to kill them, and he'll also give you experience from those animals. It also requires source nearby for the process complete, but this is a way to get resources from animals without killing them if you don't want to kill animals, or there's particularly rare animals from mods or even this game that you want him to farm for you. It can also farm mobs, but those are slightly dangerous to farm, but it can be made safer by putting them into containment jars. To put a mob into a containment jar, you first need to make the tablet of containment. That is done with a vexing wood log, essence of manipulation, and 3 glass bottles. That will give you the containment tablet. Then you make the actual containment jar out of archwood slabs and 5 glass. That will make you the containment jars. You then surround the containment jars around a ritual, and you have a source jar nearby. You then activate this ritual, and it will run as long as it has a source near enough to power it. Then any entities, including dropped items, will be picked up by the ritual and put into the jars. But the main thing we're interested in containing is not jars within jars, but rather animals within jars. Endermen can be captured by this ritual, slimes can be grabbed, villagers can be contained, and even blazes. Any mob can be put in there, including the ender dragon, can be sucked up by the ritual and put into a containment jar. Within the Worn Notebook, it will give you more details about containment jars. Containment jars are found under machines, and it'll give you the details of various different things that you can put in there and what you can get out of them. You can get dragon fire out of the dragon beans trapped in there. You can shear the sheep for wool, you can milk the cows, you can do all such things. You can even put player dummies in there. But the other thing that these containment jars can do is if we collect the jars with a pickaxe and then we put them nearby the Drygmys statue, he will then also farm these creatures for their items. So any creatures that are nearby, he will harmlessly gather their XP and items from them that they would normally drop. Thus, you can get rare items or difficult to get items farmed from his process and little dance. You can see we already have ender pearls in here, and he should over time gather the other resources as well. You can also release creatures from the containment jar by casting the spell on the jar, thus releasing them and letting them roam free again. Ars Nouveau also has a way of interacting with redstone uniquely. Many items take redstone signals to turn them on and off, and Ars Nouveau has its own unique redstone interaction in the redstone relay. Redstone relay is made like the other relays, however it is made with redstone on the top and bottom, and when placed down, if you give it a signal, it will only accept a signal through its little tail. Then you can hook up the relay to any other block nearby by right-clicking on the initial one and right-clicking on the one to receive the signal. It'll then output signals in every direction but the direction that the tail is attached from, as you can see here. It only takes signals in from that direction. They can be hooked up to multiple relays, and they send signals over a certain amount of distance, but thus removing the need for wires, and so you can have these relay nodes to send your signals, which could be very handy for some redstone constructions and automation purposes. Next, we're going to make a simple item with a source gem and an end of ire, and that is a scrying crystal. They are just made in a normal crafting table, and when you put them down, they do something really weird. Initially, they do nothing. If you right-click on them, though, you can look through them, and you can direct them using WSASD, and it's rather trippy. But that's not their main purpose. That is just a byproduct of how they work. Their main purpose is if you take a blank parchment and you combine it with the eye, the scrying crystal, it'll give you a scrying crystal coded to that specific eye. If then in an enchanting apparatus, you put on the pedestals an observer, a diamond, a spyglass, and a source stone gem with an ender eye in the apparatus itself, you'll get a scrying oculus. When you put the scrying scroll on a pedestal next to the oculus, you can then right-click on the oculus, you can select that scrying scroll, and you can look through that specific scrying camera at various different locations. So you can basically have a security cam set up, which is really cool. What's more is if you then combine in enchanting apparatus 4 blaze powder and 4 ender pearls with the scrying crystal in the center, you get an enchanter's key. You put the enchanter's key onto a scribe table and you select a spell to cast. This is magic missile, and you shift right click onto it, then that will cast the spell onto the enchanter's eye. Now the enchanter's eye, or the enchanter's key, whatever you want to call it, I just call it key because it looks like a key. How this enchanter's eye works is when you have a scrying scroll in your offhand and you have the enchanter's eye in your main hand and you right click, it will fire a spell out of the eye at the location. Now if you select the scryer's eye and try to interact with them all at the same time, it really disappointingly doesn't work. You can't target with that spell, and I don't know why. I think it really should fire those spells, and it doesn't seem to. Maybe if you have like a third friend operating it to look in the directions, but even without that, you can make it fire spells from that specific camera straight forward, is what it is. And if you want to cast rituals from a distance, you can create a ritual blazer relay. Now this is made with the enchanting apparatus, and it is a ritual brazier combined with 3 manipulation essences. Once you have that, you have your ritual relay, and then you can bind the relay to a brazier, and it'll cast the ritual at the brazier location instead. So we can cast the binding location over here if we want to instead, thus making a distance. You can have multiple ritual braziers attached to the same ritual relay, so that you can have a bunch of these set up in a location. You can have different rituals activated at different times depending on what you want to do with them. And finally, and the last thing we're going to look at, is one more ritual and one more section of the War Notebook, and that is familiars. Now, you can basically make a familiar out of all the friendly little creatures you've summoned so far, but to do that to begin with, you need the Tablet of Binding. So the Tablet of Binding is created in a crafting table with 3 source gems, 1 vexing archwood, 1 blank parchment paper, and 1 ender pearl. You then do the ritual nearby one of your little buddies. So the only one we can really do right now is if we put our Starbuncle in there, we can then activate the ritual, and that will turn the Starbuncle into a Starbuncle script. And then we can unlock this familiar by right-clicking with it, and now we own the Starbuncle familiar. So we'll just go ahead and do this with all the different animal creature types that have token summoning that can be turned into familiars. Now to summon the familiar, what you do is you go to your spellbook, you open up and you click on the familiars tab, and then you choose a familiar to summon. So we are going to summon, to start with, a Wixie. So now we have our Wixie summoned. And you can unsummon and summon them with your familiar summon and unsummon hotkey. Mine is set to J. We'll go over how to set that again here. We go into options, we go to controls, we go to key bindings, and we scroll down into Ars Nouveau. And then we have dispel and summon familiar, and we just set that key to whatever key we want. And then we can summon and dismiss her. We can also change out which familiar is summoned by going to the familiars and summoning a different one. So this will summon our Starbuncle. And each familiar has its own unique effect. These effects can be found under the familiars page by clicking on the familiar and reading over what it does. But I will go over them quickly here myself of what they do. So the Starbuncle gives you haste, and you can give your Starbuncle a gold nugget, and he will give you scrying, and this scrying will let you find gold ore, its locations. So he gives you specific scrying to find gold ore if you give him a gold nugget. The whirly swirl makes it so food gives you more saturation when you eat it, so it makes your food slightly more effective. It also makes earth spells slightly cheaper to cast. So break is earth spell, and if we have the whirly swirl out when we cast our break, it's going to be casting for a little bit cheaper. Now, the Wixie makes it so potions last longer. So this potion here lasts for 1:30 usually, but when we have the Wixie nearby, it's going to last for 1:50. Also, if you give her ingredients by right-clicking them on her, she will give you the effect of the potion, sort of like eating the raw ingredients in Skyrim. So the gas here will make it so she gives us healing. The Bookworm picks up items on the ground and gives them to you like a magnet, which makes him a little bit annoying, as I tend to throw my items away. The Drygmys familiar makes your earth spells deal more damage. I happen to have a rather poorly named spell called 2010 Goth Kid, which when you cast it, deals damage to you. So it deals about 5 hearts of damage. When we have him summoned, it's going to deal about 7, so it's going to be more powerful. Also, when it comes to looting creatures, he makes it so they have a chance of dropping more loot while he's your familiar. So he just basically gives you luck in looting. Finally, the Amethyst golem decreases the knockback you take and increases the knockback you give with your attacks. Knockback is always relatively hard to measure, but see, it gets knocked back about that far from normal punch. Then we have the golem, he gets knocked about that far. And if we were to take damage right now, we would die, so I'm going to avoid that. And that is all the familiars in Ars Nouveau. And with that, we have completed How to Ars Nouveau. Now, if you are still curious about the sections of the book we did not cover, that being both the magical equipment, the armor and perks, the rituals, and all the spells, I will be making separate videos for each one of those, covering everything that's in them to the extent that is possible to cover all those things. So be on the lookout for those videos if you want to know things about those and how to about those in specific. But as for now, and as that for now, that is that. So thank you very much for watching my video. Hope you found it useful. I hope you enjoyed it. If it's the how-to you needed, whatever section, there will be timestamps in it. It'll be great. It'll be amazing. Yeah, so there will be the other videos, which are more specifically about the things that are going to be here. But with that, you have completed the mod. You completed everything that's said and done. That's that. We're over. We're done. Goodbye. Have a good day. See you in the next video. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.